everyone. So in this video I'm going to go over the PowerPoint on Chapter 7, How Do I Write About Structure? So, we talked a little bit about structure in the Chapter 6 PowerPoint, but we're going to look at it a little more closely now. But this is a very short PowerPoint. So, again, what we're talking about with structure is the framework, some sort of pattern that serves as the framework of the story. So if you think about plays are divided into scenes and acts. Poetry is divided into lines and stanzas. Novels are divided into chapters. But a lot of times short stories aren't divided in any way. There's just, you start reading at the beginning and then you go all the way to the end of the story. There's nothing visual to break up the plot, to provide the structure in a visual or traditional way. So you have to look at the plot. The plot itself is the structure of the short story. Now, sometimes, you have to think about just the timeline itself first. Think about the conflict. Think about the climax. Is there any falling action? Does it follow that traditional linear storytelling, right? Do we start from the beginning and go through all the way to the end? Or are there interruptions and digressions? Are there flashbacks? Are there flash forwards? And remember, a flashback is when the action in the story kind of stops and we're taken back to something that happened before the story itself that we're reading started. Do we flash forward to sometime in the future, right? Or is time manipulated in any other way? Is the story told out of order in some way? And if so, why? So you have to pay careful attention to how the story is unfolding, because that is the structure. And if it follows that traditional linear pattern, it can still be of significance. So you still need to consider the structure, even if it seems pretty traditional. But if it is not linear in any way, you need to pay careful attention to how it's not linear. How does it manipulate the unfolding of the events? Because that is probably something that we are supposed to pay attention to, and it will more than likely shed light on the conflict and the theme of the story. Sometimes, though, stories can have visible structural features. There might be, you might have like 5 or 6 paragraphs, and it's, again, like one paragraph right after the other, and then after the 5th paragraph, there's space, like white space on the page, and then the next paragraph begins. That section of white space there indicates a shift of some sort. It indicates a shift in the structure. Sometimes it might even be numbered. We're actually going to read a story that is numbered in that way. And it's not like it's part 1 and part 2. It's divided into sections for some reason. Section 1, section 2, section 3, and so on. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to anything visible about the structure of the story. Do the divisions mark changes in scenes? Does it divide scenes of the story? Or does it indicate some sort of time shift? Could it indicate a shift in point of view? Maybe we have one main character telling us the story in the first section, and then another character takes over and starts telling us the story. And maybe we don't even realize it at first. first. But, you know, that space in between the sections, or the numbers of the sections, um, should be a good indicator that we should pay attention, right? Um, Also look for patterns, anything that provides contrast or anything that is repetitious. You know, that's an integral part of a story structure. Always look at the beginning, always look at the end to figure out what the structure is. And then don't forget to go back to the title of the piece. Does it have any relationship to the plot? Um, because sometimes the title will touch on the central conflict, or an important idea that's embedded in the story. And if that's the case, the title focuses our attention on the structure of the story, and it will help us understand the theme more. So again, even if the story follows that traditional linear timeline, still consider the structure. Still consider how the story unfolds and how it's presented to us, both in narration and if there's any visible, markings. If it does not follow that traditional linear pattern, definitely look further into that, because it will be significant in some way. Alright, so we're going to be reading 6 short stories over the next few weeks, and for each one of them, we will talk in depth about its structure and what the structure is and how the structure helps us understand the themes of the story better. Alright, if you have any questions about structure in general, let me know. Otherwise, you are free to move on to the next PowerPoint.